Hello dear viewers, my name is Fardin Nouri and I'm an immigration consultant in Germany. Today I would like to explain for you how you can fill the main application of Jobcenter in Germany. In fact, you fill in this form and some other supplementary attachments or appendixes of this form and submit or send them to the Jobcenter if you need the Jobcenter's benefits. And based on the new social code of Germany, this Jobcenter benefit is called Bürgergeld or citizens benefit. This part belongs to the Jobcenter employees and they will fill it in, so you do not have to write anything here.
In part A, as an applicant, you write your personal information. Here you write your first name, here your last name, here your date of birth, here your maiden name, here your place of birth, here your country of birth, here your nationality. Here you specify for them your gender or your sex, whether you're a male, a female, or it's diverse, or you don't want to give them any information about it. Here you write the name of your street where you live, here your house number, here your postal code, and here the name of the city where you live. If you have a PO box address, you write it here. Here you write your telephone number, but it's voluntary. If you want to write your telephone number, it's good. If they want to contact you and ask you some information or something, it is good, but it is, as said, voluntary. If you don't have a permanent place of residence in the city where you live in Germany, you mark here. I mean, if you live somewhere temporarily for some days, you mark here. If you're living with someone else in the apartment or in the house and the name of this person is written on the post box of this apartment or in the house and your name is not written on the post box, you write the name of this person here. Here you write your bank details. You write your name as it's written on your bank account card here. You write your IBAN number here. If you don't have a bank account, you mark here. If you have a pension insurance number, you mark yeah or yes. If you do not have one, you mark 9 or no. And when you mark 9, then you don't have to write anything in part 19 and you go to part 20. If you have marked yeah or yes, then you should write your pension insurance number here. If you have a legally appointed guardian or custodian, you should mark yeah or yes and attach a copy of the order of the court about it or the guardian's ID with this filled in application form. If you don't have one, you mark 9 or no. If you're not a German citizen and you have come from another country to Germany, you should write your date of first entry to Germany here. If you're not a German citizen, do you have a residence permit for Germany? If you have one, you mark yeah and attach a copy of your residence permit with this application form. If you don't have one, you mark 9 or no. If you have come from abroad and someone else has taken the responsibility for your expenditure and has submitted a declaration of commitment to the Foreigners Office or to the Embassy of Germany, you mark yeah or yes and attach a copy of this declaration of commitment or another proof that you have about it with this application form. If it's not the case, then you mark 9 or no. In this part, you mark your marital status If you're single, you mark here and continue with part B. If you're married, you mark here and continue with part B. If you're widowed, you mark here and continue with part B. If you're in a registered civil partnership, you mark here and continue with part B. If you're permanently separated from your spouse, you mark here and you fill in the attachment Who Ha Eins and attach it with this application form and send it to the job center together. If you're divorced, you mark here and you fill in the attachment Who Ha Eins and send it together with this application form to the job center. If your civil partnership has been dissolved, you mark here and you fill in the attachment Who Ha Eins and send it together with this application form to the job center. It is worth mentioning that I've also made a video about the fact that how you can fill in the attachment Who Ha Eins and publish this video in my this YouTube channel. You can find this video in my this YouTube channel as well. Here you write since when you have been permanently separated from your spouse, or you have been divorced, or your civil partnership has been dissolved. Of course, if it is the case with you. Part B is about the submission of this application, and here they have asked that at what point or from which date would you like to apply for citizens benefit or Bürgergeld. If you want to apply for it immediately, you mark here. If you want to apply from a later point in time for it, you mark here, and here you write the date of it, from which date you want to apply for it. In part C, you should provide information about your living situation. Here they have asked, are you capable of working? This means that you're fundamentally able from health perspective to regularly engage in an activity for at least 3 hours a day. If you're able to work, you mark yeah. If you're not able to work, you mark 9. If you're a student in a university or a pupil in a school or doing an apprenticeship, you mark yeah and attach a proof about it with this application form. If it is not the case with you, then you mark 9 and continue with part 34. If you have marked yeah, you should answer this question, and it is asked, are there costs for school books or workbooks? If it is so, you mark yeah and send a copy of the proof about it to them. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Here they ask, are you accommodated during your training? This means you live in a dormitory, a boarding school, a barracks, or a special facility for people with disabilities, or you live with the instructor with full board, or in an apartment with reimbursement for accommodation and meals. If it is the case, you mark yeah and send the copy of the proof about it to them. And if it is not the case, you mark 9. If you're under 18 years old or between 18 and 24 years old, you mark yeah. If it's not the case, you mark 9 and continue with part 34. If one of your parents live outside the benefits community, or he or she is not living with you in the family, you mark yeah or yes. If it's not the case, you mark 9 or no and continue with part 34. If you're completing or starting a school or a vocational training, you should mark yeah and fill in the attachment UH3 and send it together with this application form to the Jobcenter. If it's not the case, you mark 9 or no. If you are entitled to get the asylum seekers benefits in Germany, you should mark Ja and attach a copy of the decision of the Sozialamt or Social Welfare Office about it with this application form and send it to the Jobcenter. If it is not the case with you, you mark 9. Here you write the date until when you will receive asylum seekers benefits in Germany. If you have a personal identification number or tax number, you should write it here. If you have a foreigner's registration number, you should write it here. You can find your foreigner's registration number in your residence card. If you have applied for or have received citizens benefit or social assistance in the last 3 years, you should mark Ja. If it's not the case with you, you mark 9. If you have marked Ja, you should write here which type of assistance you've got or for which type of assistance you have applied in the last 3 years. Here you should specify the period during which you have received benefits, from which date to which date. Here you write the name of the office from which you have received this benefit. Here you write the address of this office, including the name of the street, the house number, the postal code, and the name of the city. Here they ask whether you have been employed in the last 5 years somewhere in Germany. If it is the case with you, you mark Ja. If it is not the case with you, you mark 9 and continue with part 54. Here you provide information about the period of time you are working in the last 5 years in Germany. If you have been employed with 2 or more than 2 different employers, then you write here from which date to which date, or with the second employer from which date to which date you are working. Do you have outstanding wage claims against a former employer or a current employer? If it is the case, you mark Ja. If it is not the case, you mark 9 and continue with part 54. If it is the case, you provide information about this employer here. You write the name of the employer here, the address of the employer, which includes the street name, house number, postal code, and city. If you are self-employed or freelance worker, you mark Ja. If it was not the case, you mark 9. Have you received wage replacement benefits, for example, sickness benefits, unemployment benefits, transitional allowance, or parental allowance? If you have received one or more than one of these, you mark Ja. If you have not received any of them, you mark 9 and continue with part 58. If you have marked Ja, you write here which type of wage replacement benefit you have received. Here you write the period of time in which you have received wage replacement benefits, from which date to which date. Have you completed military service or a voluntary service such as the voluntary social year or the federal volunteer service? If it has been the case in the last 5 years, you mark Ja. If it has not been the case, you mark 9. If you cared for a relative who was in need of care, if it has been the case, you mark Ja. If it has not been the case, you mark 9. If none of the above statements apply to you within the last 5 years, you should write how you have supported yourself, for example, via financial support from your relatives or friends or savings or via inheritance.
If you applied for other types of benefits or you have a plan to apply for other types of benefits, if it is the case, you mark yeah. If it is not the case, you mark 9 and continue with part 63. If you have marked yeah, you should provide information in part 62 for which type of benefits you have applied or you have a plan to apply for. And if it's possible, you should also provide a proof about it to the job center. If you have applied or want to apply for BAföG, which is provided for someone who is studying in Germany or doing an apprenticeship in Germany, or you have applied or want to apply for BAP, which is also provided for some people who are doing apprenticeship in Germany, or it is Wohngeld or housing benefit which you have applied for or want to apply for, or it is unemployment benefit, or it is pension or sickness benefit or child benefit or child allowance, you mark them, as I just showed for you how you can mark them. If you have applied or want to apply for some other type of benefit which is not listed here, you should mark here and you should write the type of this benefit here.
Have you suffered a health damage from a third party, for example, work, traffic, game, or a sports accident, medical treatment error, or physical altercation, and therefore need to apply for benefits at the job center? If it is the case, you mark yeah and fill in the attachment UF and send it together with this application form to the job center. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Do you have a claim against third parties, for example, for damages or inheritance? If it is the case, you mark yeah and provide a copy of the proof about that claim that you have to the job center. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Part D is about the special life situation, and here they have asked, are you a single parent? If it is so, you mark yeah. If it is not so, you mark 9. If you're pregnant, you mark yeah. If you're not pregnant, you mark 9. And continue with part 68. If you have marked yeah, here you should write when is the expected date for the birth of your child. If you're not married, you should also fill in the attachment UH2 and send it together with this application form to the job center. Do you require an expensive diet for medical reasons? If it is so, you mark yeah and you fill in the attachment MAB and send it together with this application form to the job center. If it is not the case, you mark 9. If you have a disability, you mark yeah. If you don't have one, you mark 9 and continue with part 71. If you have marked yeah, you should provide information about the fact that whether you receive one of these benefits mentioned here, which are provided for those who have a disability. If you receive one of these or more than one of these, then you should mark yeah and provide a copy of the decision of the relevant office about that benefit to the job center. If you do not receive one of them or more than one of them, you mark 9. Do you have an urgent special need that you cannot cover through savings or in any other way, for example, costs for exercising visitation rights in the case of separated parents? If it is the case, you mark yeah and fill in the attachment BB and send it together with this application to the job center. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Are you currently or will you soon be in an inpatient facility such as a hospital, nursing home, or prison? If it is the case, you mark yeah. If it is not the case, you mark 9 and continue with part E or A. If you have marked yeah, you should write the type of this facility which you're in it or you will be in it. And here you write how long you will be in this facility, from which date to which date. Part E is about the health and nursing care insurance. And here they ask, are you or have you recently been covered by statutory health and nursing care insurance as a family member or mandatory insured? If it is the case or it has been the case, you mark yeah, and you write here more information about it in these parts and provide proof about it to the job center. If it has not been the case, you mark 9 and continue with part 79. If you have marked yeah, you should write the name of the health insurance office here and your health insurance number, which is usually written on your card, insurance card, here. Here they have asked, do you want to change your health insurance office when you start receiving citizens benefit? If you want so, you should mark yeah and send them a copy of the proof about the new insurance office with this application form. If it is not the case, you should mark 9. Here they have asked, are you privately insured, voluntarily insured, under statutory health insurance or uninsured? If one of these is the case, you mark yeah and fill in for them the attachment is foul and send it together with this form to the job center. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Part F is about the housing situation, and here they have asked, are you living alone? If it is the case, you mark yeah and continue with part 82. If it is not the case, you mark 9. If you've marked 9, you continue with part 81, and here you provide information about the fact that with whom you're living together. If you're living with your spouse or with your registered civil partner or your partner, you mark here and you fill in the attachment VAP and send it together with this application form to the job center. If you're living with a child or children who are between 15 and 24 years old, you mark here, and for each of these children you fill in the attachment VAP and send it together with this application form to the job center. If you're living with a child or children who are under 15 years old, for each of these children you fill in the attachment KE and send it together with this form to the job center and you mark here. If you're living with your parents or one of your parents, you mark here. If you're under 25 years old, for each of your parents, you fill in the attachment VAP. If you're 25 years old or older than that, you fill the attachment HAGE for each of your parents and send it together with this application form to the job center. If you're living with your other relatives or in-laws, such as grandparents, siblings over 25 years, married children, aunts or uncles, you mark here and also fill in the attachment HAGE for each of your relatives or in-laws. If you're living with other persons, for example, other people in a shared apartment, you mark here. If necessary, the job center may check a community of responsibility and liability. Your job center may ask you to fill in the attachment file A for them. If you have needs for accommodation and heating, you mark here. and fill in the attachment KDU and send it together with this application form to the job center. If you don't have such needs, you mark 9. If your hot water is generated centrally, for example with a flow heater or boiler, you mark Yeah. If it is not the case, you mark 9. Part G is about the required documents for assessment of your application, and they have asked you to send these documents and attachments together with this application form to the job center. The first one is the attachment VM, your bank statements from the last 3 months, the attachment AK, if you're working, of course. If you're doing a self-employed work or you're a freelancer, you should fill in the attachment AKS, and the attachments mentioned in part A to F of this application form, of course, if they are needed based on your living situation. Part H includes information about your obligation to cooperate with Jobcenter, which means that you should provide correct information in this application form and in its attachments, and if there are any changes in your living situation later, you should inform Jobcenter as quickly as possible. There are also some other important information which I've already explained for you in my this video, or you can also read them by yourself. And it also includes the information about the safety of your information, and your information written in this application form and in the attachments of it will be used only for checking whether you deserve to get Jobcenter benefits or not. At the end, you write the date in which you have filled in this application form here, and you sign here. If you're a minor child, your legal representative should sign here, and with this signature you confirm that you have provided the correct information in this application form. If you have a caregiver or guardian or mentor and he or she has your responsibility, he or she should sign here, and he or she writes the date in which he or she has filled in this application form here.